That cheap gadget that broke wasn't a failure of an entire country's ability to make things. It was a successful creation of a product designed to be exactly as cheap as the buyer wanted. So the next time you see made in China, don't automatically think low quality. Instead, ask yourself, who paid for this and what did they really care about? Have you ever unboxed a new gadget? It felt cheap and a week later it breaks. You see the words made in China and you're not surprised. That's the stereotype, but you forget the iPhone in your pocket and the world's best drones are also made in China. So what's the real story here? It's not about one country's quality, it's about the fact that you get exactly what you pay for. This is where I will tell you about the tiered manufacturing system here in China. Okay, one thing out of the way, straight up, the idea that everything made in China is junk is just plain wrong. We can both agree that some of the most valuable, technologically advanced and well-respected brands on the planet have built their empires on Chinese manufacturing. Let's take for instance Apple, a company legendary for its obsessive attention to detail, manufactures the vast majority of its products in China. Tesla, a leader in the electric vehicle revolution, operates a massive gigafactory in Shanghai. And DJI, the undisputed king of consumer drone market, is a Chinese company through and through, headquartered in China in the city of Shenzhen. And it's not just tech. Also, while many European luxury fashion houses build their brand on a story of heritage and craftsmanship, some quietly use Chinese factories for certain product lines or components before their final assembly in Europe. This might mean producing sneakers in China that were once made in Italy, or sourcing parts for other goods. This creates a real paradox. Now think about it. How can a country be the world's leading producer of both premium high-status goods and cheap disposable junk? The answer doesn't lie in the country itself, but in an economic system that's almost entirely dictated by you, the customer. To really understand this, think of it like ordering a steak. You can go to a cheap diner and get a $10 steak, or you can go to a high-end steakhouse and pay $100. Both might be cooked in the same city, but the quality of the ingredients, the skill of the chef, and the price you pay are worlds apart. You would never expect the $10 diner steak to taste like the $100 one. Manufacturing in China works the same way. It's not a single entity. It's a complex ecosystem with different quality tiers. You can think of it as grade A factories that work with brands like Apple, using the best materials and intense quality control. B grade factories that produce solid mid-range goods, and then C and D grade factories. This is where the cheap stuff is born. The process starts not in China, but with the buyer whose main goal is to get a product on the shelf for the absolute lowest price. Say a power bank for $9.99. To hit that retail price, they have to find a factory that can make it for an impossibly low cost, maybe just $1 or $2. That one decision sets off a chain reaction. To be able to make a product for $1, the factory owner has to cut corners. They're forced to use the cheapest raw materials, skip most quality control checks, and run assembly lines at top speed, which leads to mistakes. They operate on razor-thin profit margins, so their entire focus is on quantity, not quality. So you need to understand, when that cheap power bank fails, it's not because the factory can't make a better one. It's because the brand that ordered it prioritized a low price above all else, and the factory delivered exactly what was requested. While this may not be a universal rule, the agreement is clear. You don't get what you want, you get what you pay for. One of the biggest issues is the complexity of the supply chain. A brand might do its homework and pick a good factory, but to meet an aggressive price target, that factory might secretly subcontract parts of the order to smaller, less equipped workshops without the buyer ever knowing. This is very common though. Suddenly, the quality control standards the brand thought it had are gone, as part of their product is now being made in a place they've never even heard of. Plus, there's a huge variation in factory capabilities. While some have modern facilities, many are little more than workshops with limited production control. Without clear specifications and constant on-site audits from the buyer, these lower-tier factories will almost always revert to the cheapest and fastest way of doing things. Communication gaps and different business norms can also create mismatched expectations, where a factory owner genuinely thinks they've met the standard while the outside buyer is horrified at the result. This is why companies that succeed with high-quality goods in China are deeply involved. They have teams on the ground, run constant audits, and provide incredibly detailed product specs. They don't just send an email with the price and hope for the best. For years, the story has been that China is the world's factory for cheap goods. But that's changing real fast, driven by both the government and technology. The government's Made in China 2025 initiative is a huge national strategy to transform the country from manufacturing giant into a global manufacturing power. This plan is focused on boosting technological self-sufficiency and moving up the value chain into high-tech sectors like robotics, aerospace, and biotech, with improved product quality as a key component of that goal. This isn't just a slogan, it's backed by a massive government investment pushing industries toward innovation. At the same time, technology is very evident on the factory floors. Chinese factories are rapidly adopting automation and AI for quality control. AI-powered cameras can spot tiny defects a human eye would miss, and they can do it 24/7. This makes production more precise and directly fights many of the old causes of poor quality. The more China's economy evolves, new risks keep appearing. Reports of the vanishing supply, where a factory takes a deposit and disappears, are a growing concern. This new reality also shows that while China's ability to produce high-quality goods is better now than ever, the risk of dealing with the lower tiers of the system have also gotten more serious. So the label Made in China isn't a verdict on quality, it's a clue. It tells you the product came from the most diverse, complex, and rapidly changing manufacturing ecosystem on Earth. An ecosystem that can produce both world-class luxury and dollar store trinkets. The real question isn't, is this bad because it's from China? The real questions are, which tier of that ecosystem did this come from? And more importantly, what level of quality was the brand or buyer who ordered it willing to pay for? The stereotype of low-quality China is outdated. That cheap gadget that broke wasn't a failure of an entire country's ability to make things. It was a successful creation of a product designed to be exactly as cheap as the buyer wanted. So the next time you see Made in China, don't automatically think low quality. Instead, ask yourself, who paid for this and what did they really care about? Now I'm curious about what you think about Made in China products in 2025. Let me know in the comment section, and as usual, I'll see you in the next one.